So for our next presentation here, we're shifting gears. And Lance, you can either click the go backstage or the leave. Yeah, I always like to remind everyone on that. So we're now going to shift gears with Maureen Smith. She was an early Innovator grant recipient. And she is going to kind of walk us through using AI curriculum for the K-12 classroom. So I'm excited to have Maureen join us, and here she is. So Maureen, I'm going to.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Maureen Smith. I work for Broome, Tioga, BOCES, which is an education consortium in New York State. I'm a science specialist. I work with 17 different districts in our area, and I work K-12 doing everything instructional. So that's kind of my day-to-day, but I also am an early innovator with UBTECH Education. And so what I'm going to share today is information about UBTECH and why I really, as an educator, feel so strongly about the use of UBTECH Education and UBTECH robotics for our teachers. And I'm going to do kind of a background around UBTECH and the robotics program, their kits and curriculum. And then I'm going to share our program that we are implementing with the Early Innovator grant that we received to really kind of highlight how we are ramping up from very little robotics in our classes in many ways to a very robust program that will be servicing, as I mentioned, 17 different districts, and kind of the setup that we have to really make sure it's a successful one. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my slides that I have. Okay, so as I mentioned, my background, and then, really kind of what I'm going to focus on for us today is really this idea of overcoming that barrier. So I know for me, before I left the classroom, so previously I taught middle school and high school science, and my background is biology. I am not a coder. And when my students started showing interest in it, I know I was very nervous because I didn't feel I had the skills. And, it took me a long time to get very comfortable. And so that's one of the things that has been really at the height of my work right now, is really trying to help our teachers feel as comfortable as they can to really do successful integration of robotics into our science curriculums. And so this was one thing I just wanted to share from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, because I think one of the things that we have to, think about as science educators in particular is, what are we preparing our kids for? And what are we really trying to make sure that they are able to do if they want and need to? And with a projection growth of 9% over 10 years, we know that there is going to be a very, very large need for robotics engineering and mechanical engineering. And so with that in mind, our teachers in our area are thrilled to have the opportunity we have to think about questions like this. So, if you could build a robot to make your life easier, what would it do? And, when we ask this to our students, they come up with some really great ideas of not just helping themselves, but a lot of times they actually ignore that make your life easier, and they think about making classmates' lives easier or their parents' lives easier. And so this has been one of the big things that we've been able to really kind of tackle and implement. So real quick, this is just kind of what we're going to talk about. What is UBTECH Education, as well as, information about the curriculum and kits. And I really wanted to make sure to include this because I think it's important to really talk about why building a program that has support for teachers is so important when implementing any program, but especially one that is as robust and well developed as UBTECH's robotics and education materials are. And then I do have a couple sample builds to just kind of show you if we have time. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on the time because 30 minutes goes by fast. So really the first thing, in terms of what makes UBTECH different. So as a classroom teacher, I was given opportunities to have, kind of test kits come into my room or robotics materials. And they were always just given to me. And the teachers below me and above me didn't necessarily ever have those. And so it was kind of a one-off year where kids would come to my room. And because I did start to gravitate more towards robotics and incorporating it into my science classroom, they had those experience, but there was no growth and there was no connection across the grade levels. And so one of the things that I really feel strongly about what makes UBTECH different is that they're leveled kits, but they actually advance with students. And they allow students to work on, ideas and robots that it will walk them through the steps of how to build, but also they can take them apart and then make their own creations or take them apart. And my kids always love doing this with our Camp Aspire that we're doing for UBTECH is they like to kind of create their own Frankenstein projects where they take pieces that they've liked from these other projects and put them together. And that I think is one of the big things. You don't need separate kits for all of these different builds. With one kit, you can do it all. The other huge thing that I feel super great about and my teachers feel strongly with is that it's not just, here's your robots. We want you to work with your kids on computer science and coding and robotic skills. It's actually tied with a curriculum to the national science standards, which I'm in New York. And so, we adopted a New Yorkified version of the national next generation science standards. But the materials are actually aligned not just to those engineering skills and to the coding and robotics that we know is so important, but it's directly tied to science and it's tied to real world science. And so I'll show you a couple of things from the curriculum just to give you an idea of, that authentic nature of the projects that come along with this have our kids and our teachers, of course, but especially our students so excited about doing the work. And they don't mind that it is frustrating, like any sort of robotics and coding thing can be, where, you have to maybe code something 10 different times before you get it to work. We have found that our kids really persevere when they are struck with some of those problems, because they really want to solve what it is that they're working towards. And so those are just some of the things that really, stood out to me as an educator. And now, especially in my role supporting educators, I wanted to make sure that teachers really had something that would help them understand what they were working with kids, and then also, give them that peace of mind of having all the background information that they need and having all of the curricular support materials that they need. And so that's been one of the things that, has been great for us and for our teachers and our students. The other big thing, and I will show you this because a couple of the teachers I consulted with as well putting these together, and they said, some of the things I had to make sure to share about features within the program and app that you don't find in other ones. And so it's kind of a really neat thing because we've heard feedback from students who have used other robotics kits and materials and have said, oh, I really wish that this kit or this program I worked with had the same feature that UBTECH does. So, just to kind of, again, get started, I want to make sure everybody kind of has this understanding of what it is when we talk about the materials in order to, fully support teachers. The kits come with everything that you would need, including access to the free apps. And there is, an iOS and an Android version of the apps. And so right away, your kids and your teachers can get started building and started coding without needing anything else. And so the kits alone come with some of these, most amazing builds. And I'm going to, hopefully this works. There isn't any sound. So if you don't hear anything, that's okay. I kind of created, as I was building one of our robots the other day, just a short little video to kind of show the kit in action. Let's see if it'll work. And so you see, I have my iPad set up and those are all of my parts. And very quickly, I'm able to walk through the build. And so it is one of the things that makes it nice is that, we have students who have, visual impairment issues, or they have fine motor skills. And what you see is immediately between the app and the materials, those kids are able to still work through things, even without necessarily having a ton of, support from the teachers. And so this is one of the things that I think is great about the materials. But then as you see, the support materials that we have for teachers with the program that allow them to really feel confident is just amazing. And that lack of confidence is one of the things that we're told a lot by our teachers why they don't want to do programs. And so that's our little windshield wiper that I built the other night. And just wanted to kind of, like I said, share that so you could see one of the robots. We didn't have time for, of course, doing a build right now. But, again, just to kind of finish and wrap up with some of the stuff about UBTECH and the kits, but it's based on block coding. And so block coding is definitely, it's what made things easier for me at the start of things, because as I mentioned, I didn't have any coding background. And so one of the things that is nice is if you do have teachers who have any familiarity with any sort of block coding, it really is an easier way, in my opinion, to kind of ease them into things. And so it's one of the pieces that's nice. The other thing that's great, and I've been working with a teacher since summer started, who's preparing to use these next year. And one of the things that has really helped her, because she has pretty much no background in coding, is that there's example codes in there for most all of the builds. And so it's a great way to use it as a starting point if your teachers or your kids need that starting point, and then you can expand upon that code from there. And almost every teacher at this point, so we got our grant in early fall last year, and at this point we have had probably close to 60 teachers that have been trained in, using these and gone through it. And I would say 90% of them have said that the reason that they don't take on robotics programs and any sort of, coding program is because the coding is what causes them the most stress. And it's hard because even when I was in the classroom, I would always hear from people, it's okay, the kids will get it. You don't have to understand it. And that is a really hard thing for teachers to feel comfortable with, especially if we're nervous our kids are going to have questions. And so having the block coding is a great start, but then really making sure is in setting up a program that the teachers have time to learn the block coding themselves. Even if it's simply going through the example coding in a program like we have with UBTECH, it's a really important piece, because if we're stressed about it as teachers, we're not going to do it. And we're not going to necessarily, give it the same level of, push and engagement and excitement in our classrooms if we are feeling stressed about it. Some of the additional features that I have found to be some of the most exciting is that, with this, you can do action recording. And so you can actually pose your robot in different positions and keep hitting save on it. And it will then create the code to do whatever that action was. The robots can also be controlled using a joystick feature. And so this has been a really great way for us to break teachers into the idea of using it, because if you think back to Atari, that was, the same type of thing. And so some of these additional features have really helped ease our teachers into the idea of doing robotics and coding. And so again, those features though, if we weren't doing a program where they had support, and someone who was showing them how to do these and how to work through them, our teachers would not necessarily go through and find them or understand necessarily how to utilize them with our students. And so again, it's one of those things that when you're thinking about a program, really just making sure to have that support for teachers is so important. Versatility within these, it's one of the things my teachers have loved is that there's 3 different kits right now. And so beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And there are between 12 and 15 builds that right away kids can hop on, teachers can hop on, and they can build those. But then, as I mentioned before, they can take them apart, build something new, rebuild the same thing, or they can make their own. And this is one of those things that One of my teachers said I had to make sure to share, and this is a quote from her, that, this feature, this 360-degree view in the app as you're building, was a game changer for her students and her. And this was one where one of her students even commented that they wished that, one of the other programs that they used had that in their materials. And so this is a very short clip. We'll see if this. So what you can see is when you're in the app, and I use this all the time, you can actually move that build around. So if there's any question about where something should be positioned or how it should be in there, it's so easy to just zoom in, zoom out, turn it to a different direction. And it really is one of, the big pieces for our teachers. And so here about the curriculum. So that's all about kind of the robotics and the kit themselves. But what I have found very different is that this isn't just building robot to build a robot. There is curriculum that is tied to the new science standards. And so I'm going to just kind of go through this quickly. But one of the things, so this is pieces from a 5th grade robot for rescue. The curriculum itself is 74 pages for one unit. And so there's 3 additional supporting documents with that. This is what our teachers need time with. They need to have that time to be able to go through and not just learn how to do the robotics and not just learn how to do the coding, but they need to have that support of, as you can see in this sequence, this gives the teachers everything that they would need in order to teach their students about dinosaurs is part of it, but also there's a lot about climate and weather and, Earth's history and structure, all tied into the build of a robot to do a specific thing. And so our teachers need time to break that down, and they need to break it down with support through the curriculum. And so what you see is every lesson has specific outcome and learning target for kids that will walk students through them. And again, it is tied to the next generation science standards, and they've done a really nice job of highlighting where the connections are. Every piece has an evaluation that goes along with it so that we can really assess, okay, are my kiddos really picking up the pieces that I need them to, or that I'm hoping that they will from this? Again, the standards are all highlighted. And as you saw on the previous slide, there's even color coding within those statements. But this is the big thing and especially for us in our elementaries, is really making sure that in order to take the time to do something as big as this unit, we really have to cover more than just science. And what's amazing is that the science standards are covered, engineering and technology is covered within it, but also there is such a heavy emphasis on our ELA skills. And so when we talk about our reading and our writing, but also our verbal skills, throughout all of the assessments and all of the activities, it's in there. And so a lot of my teachers who at first were nervous and didn't think they would have the time to be able to do this have said, oh, but this is covering what I need to cover for ELA today. And there are ones where it covers obviously math skills as well. So once they start to see that those connections are built in, it's like just a game changer in terms of finding the time and being able to work it into their schedules. The other thing that is great is that we pull in art. And so there's a lot of modeling within the new science standards, and there's a lot of that done within the curriculum and the materials, and allowing kids to have that creativity. So it's not just draw a model of something I want you to, but it's draw a model of what you want to build and how are we going to accomplish this. And so it really does cover and cross so many portions of what we want our kiddos to learn and work on, that it's just become so, life-changing for our teachers that are using it. The engineering design process, as I kind of mentioned, is covered throughout the whole thing. And I know we're getting close to the end. But the other big thing is that not everything is device driven. And so in the lesson that I mentioned, grade 5 robot for rescue, our kids are actually learning quadruped motion by one person in the group. And actually, in the class we were in just before the closure, all of the kids wanted to do it. So we ended up having to kind of change things and let everybody do it, where they're actually like thinking as they crawl across the floor, how do animals who are quadrupeds move, and how is that going to then impact, my ability to build a robot that does that? The same lesson, it talks a lot about volcanoes and where they happen and the different pieces of technology that help support us. And so it makes it real for our kids. It gives them that real world connection and piece to work through. And here's our program. So I want to make sure to really kind of fully cover it. So everybody thought I was kind of crazy when I said I wanted to do this. Our program requires the teachers to be trained first. And so you'll see some pictures of what that training is, but then they borrow the kits that they need for their kiddos, and they have support throughout. And this has been one of the biggest things, is that myself, as well as others on my team and other district staff members, are there to help them as they're learning it, but also as they implement it. And so I, push into classrooms when they're going to start things, or if they have questions. There's been a couple of times, obviously pre-closure, this was all happening, where I would get an email or a phone call or a text message of, we have an issue, can you come here? And so having that support has really made a lot of our teachers who normally would not have jumped on this, jump on wanting to participate in this, because they feel like they have someone that they can turn to immediately, or multiple someones in some of our teachers' spaces where they know that they have that support. And so here's a picture of just one of the times that we had in small groups, teachers were able to build the robot themselves. So they build it. They are able to break down the curricular materials and take a look at, the supplemental pieces, and really determine how they're going to implement it and when and where in their curriculum, and make sure that it aligns to everything that they want. But I know, especially in these 4 that are sitting here, 2, maybe 3 of them would have never implemented any sort of coding and robotics had they not had that time that we walked through it and that they got to do it themselves. And so just a few more pictures of some of our other, trainings where you can see that, our teachers are collaborating just the same way that our students will. And so it's one of the things that, we really highlight is, you're just learning this. We don't expect you to be an expert. Act like your student and figure it out. And the teachers really, have all done such a great job. And when they leave, tell us how much more comfortable they feel and how much more confident they feel in this. One of the teachers pictured is a 4th grade teacher, and I actually, know her pretty well, and I know people who have kiddos in her classroom. And when they found out that she was bringing the robots, they were like, "What? We don't do that much in her class with technology." And my kids are so excited. They could see the excitement on their teacher's face. And so, really making sure that it's open for everyone, and that they feel supported, because when they feel supported and they feel like they have that time to go through it, we have just found they're so much more likely to actually implement and bring it back for their kiddos. And so here's another, example. So on the right here was a visit, as I was mentioning, the quadruped. I got to watch some of that, which was fun. And this is, classroom support. A couple of the kids were having some wire issues, and, thankfully I was able to get out there and help them support and figure it out. And then over here during the closure, we still have teachers that are working on learning these because they want to be prepared for next year. And, thankfully we're able to do a quick Zoom call. And so this teacher is actually a instructional technology specialist who also, like me, didn't have much coding support. And so when she started using it, it was constant emails. How do I do this? Where am I making a mistake? And so finally we just hopped on Zoom. But again, really making sure that our teachers feel like they have the support, and it's not just, hey, we've got these great kits and we'd like you to implement them, but really having the time to walk them through everything and really show them how it works and give them that opportunity to kind of play and explore themselves is where we have found the most success. And so, some of the feedback that we have gotten from teachers is just how much they appreciate having had the time to dive into the robots and the curriculum and feel like they have that, support from even just the documents and the physical materials, but also knowing they have the support of those of us on our team. the students have been loving every part of it. And we actually had a teacher who contacted us during the closure who they were still in the process of working on their robots when the closure happened. And this teacher said almost every week, the kids said, but what about our robots? Will they be there next year? Are we going to be able to finish them with our next teacher? And so the kids are so excited about it. And we had a couple of teachers who have all commented about how great their students work together on this. And one in particular told me when I went out to do a classroom visit that she had kids who normally couldn't even sit at the same table together, who were actually getting up and actively helping each other and supporting each other as they worked through and kind of did some of that problem solving. So, what we have seen is the great amount of excitement and engagement from our teachers and our students. And what's been really exciting is we are seeing that the grade levels that follow the teachers that have already started to do these, they're the ones that have been reaching out and asking, okay, I know we're closed, but can we borrow a kit for the summer so that we can start getting ahead and we're ready when we come back together to, do the trainings? And so I think one of the big things for us is that we're seeing this excitement build, but we're also seeing the excitement build vertically. It's not just the excitement within the classroom or the grade level that the teachers have already started to take it on, but now people are starting to talk about it and they're starting to really, be excited about having those opportunities themselves to bring this into their classrooms. And so, when you look at any sort of robotics program, I really think the teacher support is, at least for us at first, it was one of the things we lacked. I know for me as a classroom teacher, I really struggled with it. But, once that support is in place, you'll see similar things to what we've seen where we've gone from, oh yeah, I have a robotics kit. We pull it out on, half days maybe, but now we actually have teachers who are, revamping their entire sequence for the year to make room for these programs and to really take this on. And so I think the more well-developed you can make it, the better it will be, for everybody. We're not going to have time for sample builds, but even here you'll see my almost 3-year-old has taken in on the coding with me and doing some of the work. And, I'll put up my contact info before I, get pulled off for our next presentation. But, thank you so much for joining me. And, if anyone has any questions or wants to reach out about the program that we run or anything, at all, just please feel free to reach out.
Thank you, Maureen. That was great. And you got some nice kudos there too for the work. So we really appreciate what you're doing and what you're leading. So, if you have questions for Maureen or for UBTECH, don't hesitate to reach out and just let us know.
Yeah, please.
And then if we could just get a copy of your presentation as well, we would love that because we want to share that on the website, and some people have asked for that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you. And it's just easy to exit out. You just click on the leave and that'll help take you off stage there.
Okay.